Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Such hot weather nowadays. Heat wave is upset. Well, take care of your health in this hot weather by drinking water frequently and also taking a proper rest. Today, I want to speak in English for those Korean Americans who are Korean residents living abroad or who are not fluent in Korean, so that they could understand the Korean question more clearly, especially regarding North Korean nuclear issues and future brinkmanship that North Korea could pose to South Korean defense strategies. 6 days ago, Patrick Cronin, who is an expert on North Korea, wrote a commentary with the title of Diplomacy with North Korea, Necessarily, Likely, and Problematic, something like that. It means that even though North Korea has many problems, for us to deal with as an allied countries, there is a necessity, and even though there are some problems, North Korea is likely to respond to a certain degree of solution if we make combined effort together with more realistic approaches, something like that. According to a commentary written by Patrick Cronin, it says that diplomatic outreach to Kim Jong-un is poised to expand in the year ahead, and with prospect rising for renewed leader-to-leader engagement, means between President Trump and Kim Jong-un himself. And we remember that President Trump has repeatedly touted, how he gets along very well with the North Korean leader. And also, newly elected South Korean President Lee Jae-myung made clear in his inaugural remarks that improving inter-Korean relations would be a priority for his administration. It means that some chances could happen for dialogues with North Korea in the future. So, yet, while diplomacy with Pyongyang is both necessary and increasingly likely, meaningful progress may remain elusive due to a familiar set of entrenched obstacles and the emergence maybe new ones. We need a diplomacy, practical diplomatic approach toward North Korea. This is a very important. The commentary continues that diplomacy remains an indispensable instrument of national security. We are on the brink of a new nuclear age, and with North Korea accelerating its production of nuclear weapons and the delivery systems capable of targeting US homeland and the broad Asia-Pacific region, Washington and Seoul would be remiss not to test whether talks might wield greater stability and reduce risk. Even if denuclearization or lasting peace remain distant goals. So, as suggested by the US intelligence community's annual threat assessment, North Korea is stoutly committed to its nuclear deterrent. And that conviction has only hardened in the wake of US and Israeli airstrikes aimed at crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities. Nuclear weapons were deemed essential for survival long before. But now, Kim Jong-un may be spurred to grander ambitions. He may not unreasonably conclude the buildup cannot afford to slow down or be derailed by arms control. We know that North Korea's nuclear arsenal is now sizable and growing. Pyongyang is believed to possess about 50 nuclear warheads, with enough fissile material for perhaps another 40 bombs, 40 nuclear bombs. Among recent revelations are Kim's open disclosure of the previously covered enrichment facility at Gangsong area, a new highly enriched uranium plant at the Yongbyon nuclear site. He also appears on the cusp of other achievement, possibly the deployment of a tactical nuclear weapon, new military satellite launches, another nuclear test, and the gradual progress of a sea-based nuclear deterrent, among other steps. So, in this critical situation, allowing Pyongyang to develop a robust second strike capability and a credible threat to the US mainland could deepen fears of decoupling, undermining the credibility of extended deterrence and emboldening the Kim regime to escalate provocations. He has also worries, not small, such a big worries. So, diplomacy, even if it limited in scope, could at least reduce Pyongyang's perception of being surrounded by hostile powers contemplating a decapacitation strike or preventive attack. Such a scenario may seem improbable, but it is hardly unthinkable for Kim Jong-un. This is true. As the 2023 National Intelligence estimate noted, North Korea continues to seize the nuclear arsenal as leverage to coerce South Korea in easing its stance on U.S. strategic asset deployment, scaling back major military exercises, and rolling back sanctions that have driven the regime's increasing dependence on China, cybercrime, and on expanding defense relationship with Russia. At present, the complete absence of dialogue and the collapse of confidence-building mechanisms, once distant goals, such distant goals, supported by the Trump administration. And Moon Jae-in government have left the peninsula vulnerable, The rebuilding of military fortifications within the demilitarized zone, DMZ, provide tangible evidence of the tenuousness of a previous effort to reduce tensions. While a sudden military escalation remains unlikely in isolation, the risk of regional conflict cannot be discounted in a world beset by simultaneous crises. A Taiwan contingency tensions in the South China Sea, Taiwan contingency and the tensions in South China Sea, renewed confrontation with Russia, or another Iran crisis could overwhelm a US-led order already shifting under the pressures of an America-first foreign policy. We are living in a transition period, a period of big crisis if we cannot manage it with proper measures. So talking about high-level re-engagement, probable and politically useful, channels of communications are already active, and President Trump welcomes a new summit, even amid other pressing priorities. Kim Jong-un, though more cautious after the failed Hanoi meeting, he has not ruled out further high-level diplomacy, especially if it promises face-saving optics without the pressure of immediate concessions, something like that. The February 2019 Hanoi summit failed because the two sides could not close the gap between Kim's desire to retain his nuclear enrichment programs in exchange for significant sanctions relief. Trump could not be persuaded to give way the leverage of sanctions without at least capping or reducing the North nuclear weapons programs. So A summit in the spirit of Singapore could serve a useful function, while the 2018 summit succeeded mainly in breaking the diplomatic ice. The resulting joint statement included a broad four-part of a framework, still remains a useful foundation right now. Unlike during the Moon era, when Seoul pursued reconciliation and Washington insisted on denuclearization, the two governments might now entertain a more pragmatic division of labor. We need it. We need it. Definitely we need it. Trump's desire to reduce U.S. commitment and shift borders to wealthy allies could dovetail with President Lee Jae-myung's interest in inter-Korean stability. A trade-off involving strategic flexibility of U.S. forces in exchange for more proactive South Korean engagement with the North may require a little more than a handshake and a further up. A post-Trump-Kim meeting could easily be framed as a low-risk, high-visibility diplomatic achievement if we manage well. Still, long-standing and new challenges remain formidable. So, how about talking about all the impediment, the issue of denuclearization and ending the war on the Korean Peninsula? The core tension between U.S. denuclearization demands and North Korea's insistence on an end of war declaration remains still unresolved. Insisting on the improbable goal of the complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons is at best seen as a long-term aspirational goal, not a reality. Would the West be willing to settle for political normalization without nuclear agreement? Is it? Could an end of war declaration be seen in Pyongyang as a first step toward pressuring South Korea to bear the full burden of the North? Full burden of the North Korean threat, despite lacking its own nuclear deterrent? Another question. President Trump may lean toward drawing down U.S. forces in Korea, whether to realign defense posture, or respond to congressional and the Pentagon opposition, or due to dissatisfaction with alliance cost sharing. Either way, strategic and economic issues in the alliance may be separated or linked, depending on high-level negotiations. Trade, tariffs, investment, and defense contributions are increasingly interwoven. So we have talked about new impediment, as commentary says. New impediment, Russia-North Korean military alignment nowadays. One of the most consequential recent development is the growing defense partnership between Russia and North Korea. We heard that President Putin determined to outlast Ukraine and outmaneuver NATO. It is leaning more heavily on support from North Korea and China. A 2024 comprehensive strategic partnership agreement between Moscow and Pyongyang appears to revive their Cold War alliance, committing both sides to mutual support in a crisis. North Korea's military troops and munitions have become critical to Russia's war effort, and Russian defense technology is highly coveted by Mr. Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Symbolic gestures such as North Korean media highlighting Kim Jong-un honoring flag draped in a coffins of fallen North Korean soldiers, who died fighting Russia's war, underline this tightening bond. This partnership complicates diplomacy. Pyongyang may now feel emboldened by the backing of a nuclear-armed, veto-wielding member of the UN Security Council and believe that Washington's ability to diplomatically isolate North Korea is diminishing. Beyond the bilateral relationship, the deepening alignment among CRINK countries, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, is forging a stronger links between potential flashpoints in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia. Against this backdrop, Kim Jong-un may choose to feign disinterest in diplomacy with his principal adversary. So, as commentary suggests, we need a more flexible and enduring alliance to solve this kind of conflict-ridden Korean question here. And recent assessment of a possible high-level diplomatic re-engagement with North Korea raise as many questions as answers. Even in the absence of a breakthrough, diplomacy can ease tensions, lower risks, and reinforce the US-ROK alliance. These benefits, however, depend on both Washington and Seoul adopting a more flexible, holistic, and strategic approach. Can a kind of framework be forged that trades strategic flexibility for strategic reassurance? Can the alliance remain resilient amid the accelerating transition of wartime operational control right? A smaller US troop presence and increasing emphasis on China? Can trust be rebuilt with North Korea without undermining trust with South Korea? These remain open questions. The last case outcome might see South Korea assume greater responsibility for stability on the Korean Peninsula, while the United States focuses on deterring China. What United States is framing regarding the Korean Peninsula defense policy in the future, I think. President Lee Jae-myung's unilateral decision to stop the audio aggression of loudspeaker broadcast at DMZ was met with a reciprocal move by North Korea, offering a glimmer of hope for improved inter-Korean ties. At the same time, deeper strategic alignment between the United States and South Korea could help recalibrate the alliance. This alignment might include greater economic integration cooperation, also cooperation in shipbuilding, energy, data centers, semiconductors, biotech, and a defense industrial confederation. So, if we talk about the worst case scenario, it is one of alliance drift, North Korean brinkmanship, and the erosion of the global non-proliferation regime. The test of extended deterrence will not only affect stability on the Korean Peninsula, but also could also determine whether the world can uphold any semblance of order or instead slide into a future where nuclear weapons proliferate unchecked in the absence of a credible diplomatic framework. So we need a proper diplomatic framework. So in short, while diplomacy may not resolve the core conflict with North Korea or halt Pyongyang's nuclear development, its absence or failure could make the Korean flashpoint even more dangerous than it already is. This conclusion clearly gives South Koreans recommendations that North Korean question is such a sensitive and complicated question that not only South Korea, but also all the allied countries, including the United States, the core allied country, should make combined effort to move Kim Jong-un to come to a dialogue table and to reduce risks coming out of North Korean military brinkmanship backed by North Korean nuclear weapons. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have watched United States forces, such a strong military power when they hit Iran's nuclear facilities. Such a military operation gave all the community that still the United States is super military power that allied countries including NATO, also like Japan, South Korea could defend one for their national defense benefit and also their economic security in the future. We have 4 core countries in the world that will challenge liberal international order established by the world leadership of the United States. Russia, which is doing war on the Ukraine. People's Republic of China, which has been going on by the name of China's Dream, led by Xi Jinping. Probably he's losing his power right now. Iran, in the Middle East, and in North Korea. South Korea is a divided nation. We cannot forget this kind of stark reality, like Israelis are defending their countries. The crucial question at this point is that are South Koreans are fully aware of this kind of dangers, well educated on the security issues, on the historical senses, and knowing the stark reality of international politics imposed by the United States. We have to think about this kind of crucial questions. At least we have to learn how a national defense is formed when people are united, spiritually as well as material. It means that in terms of military equipment. Also, properly utilizing international alliance framework. Look, Israel, how they are doing. Surrounded by all the Arab nations hostile to Israel's security. South Korea is at such a critical moment in terms of defense strategies. United States is changing its defense strategy now, especially American troops stationing in South Korea. 280,500 now. 20,000. $850 US soldiers stationed in South Korea. Its role and its future operational tactics could be changed, mainly focusing on containing the rise of China in East Asia rather than deterring North Korea's aggressions. Changing military strategies. And newly elected President Trump is requesting that we should raise our defense budget, probably at the level of NATO. All the NATO members committed 5% of GDP to military spending. How about South Korea? We need more than that, probably. And recently, US President Donald Trump requested us $100 million, defense budget for American troops stationing in South Korea. So changing security maps on the Korean Peninsula, on the changing perceptions on the importance of Korean Peninsula. We have to deal with these kind of questions with more higher level of alert against North Korea. And well, understanding the changing structures of U.S. world management strategies. Otherwise, South Korea will be losing momentum to defend our country, to protect our economic security, to protect our human security we are enjoying nowadays. This is a very, very crucial question, I think. Well, today I was analyzing based on a good commentary published in the United States on the question of North Korean nuclear brinkmanship and how to make them come to a dialogue table, also making a very nice framework for peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. Okay, have a nice evening. Also, taking care of your health in such humid and hot summer weather. Heat wave is upset. Thank you very much.